you can see and hear me, please raise your hand. Very good. Okay, so before we start, I just have a couple of announcements. One is that our website is presently having some security issues. We're trying to upgrade our website to the secure server. So as a result, we're having a couple of security issues. So those of you who have been trying to sign on to the website and are not able to reach it, please bear with us for 1 week. But what we can suggest in the meantime is that you try to clear your browser history. And then once you've cleared your browser history, reload the page, and hopefully it'll work. If it doesn't work, then please bear with us for 1 week, and we'll try to get it up and running as soon as possible. The second announcement is that a really big thank you to those of you who have already donated something, and to those of you who have expressed interest in donating this week. Because of the website issues that we're having, if you are not able to donate, then please bear with us for 1 week. Just hold that thought. We're very, very grateful. But we'll let you know when that's possible. So if you've tried to do it and it hasn't worked, then let us know, just so that we can tell you when it is working finally. So those are announcements for now, and then we'll see what else comes up later. So let's start, and then we can proceed. So if you can please share the invocation. Okay. This time, try to keep it still as much as possible. Don't move it while it's happening, okay? Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Ya Kundendu Tusharahara Dhavala Ya Shubhravastravrita Ya Veenavara Dandamanditakara Ya Shvetapatmasana या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्करप्रभृतिभिर्देवैः सदा वन्दिता सा मां पातु सरस्वती भगवती निःशेषजाड्यापहा सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा येनाक्षरसमाम्नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः अज्ञानान्धस्य लोकस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै पाणिनये नमः. Thank you. My pranams to my teacher, Professor Pushpa Dikshit ji, because of whom I am all that I am today, and I'm able to actually think and teach. So my pranams to her. Now we have a lot to cover today, and it's very exciting. So I'll get started right away. Last time we saw a zoomed out image of Sanskrit literature. So we zoomed out to the max, and we saw all of Sanskrit literature broken up into themes, which are broken up into various texts, which are broken up, of course, into chapters, sentences, and words. And then what we did was we saw that even a word could be broken up into parts. So we have a word which is made up of prakriti, which means the root, and pratyaya, which is the suffix that we attach to the root in order to make that word. So we had this macro level, universal, cosmic understanding of Sanskrit, and we zoomed into that atomic, subatomic level of Sanskrit. And we saw how a sentence is formed We saw the way in which the sentence works and plays with itself. And we saw that a verb is the glue of a sentence. The verb is really that thing which keeps a sentence together, because all other words somehow have some direct or indirect relationship with that verb. And therefore, the verb is really the central component of a sentence. And so what we will do in this class is we will focus on verbs. If you know verbal forms, which are really the only essential components of a sentence without which you cannot have a sentence, then you are already equipped with way more than normal people in order to understand Sanskrit. And we also reminded ourselves, and we should continue to remind ourselves, that the study of Sanskrit grammar is not just for the sake of studying Sanskrit grammar, but it is for the sake of changing your worldview. It's for the sake of changing your world. And it's for the sake of learning how to think deeply, sharply, and in a systematic way, and how to express yourself in such a way. So the study of Sanskrit grammar has all of these functions, plus many, many more. So we should always focus on that, especially if we're approaching Sanskrit grammar as our first sort of intro into Sanskrit. We should always keep in mind the big picture. Although we will be zoomed into that very micro level, nevertheless, we should keep in mind the big picture, and I'll keep reminding you in various ways to do that. So let's start with something very interesting. Since we're focusing on verbs, I want to show you just how powerful verbs are. Exactly what is a verb capable of doing. So let me take you through one very interesting calculation. Those of you who have calculators or something open, please open that and keep doing this calculation with me. And then at the end, I will ask you all what number you come up with. So get those out, get those ready. And Srijitji, if you can please share my my whiteboard. Okay. Thank you. Okay, great. So now let us start with this calculation. We have we have 1,943 dhatus. Now, dhatu, remember, is a verbal root. We have 1,943 of these that are given in Panini's Dhatu Patha, which is one of the textbooks for this course. If you already have the textbook, wonderful. And maybe today you'll get a chance to open it a little bit as well. And if you don't have the textbook, don't worry, because I'll be uploading the relevant PDFs of the sections that you need in order to follow along with the class. So not to worry if you don't have it, but if you do, now would be a good time to get it out and start taking a look at it. When you open that book, then the first column that you see, like just open it somewhere in the middle and you'll see all these numbers. So the first column that you will see is that dhatu, what we're talking about. Okay. So we have 1,943 dhatus. So what all can we do with these dhatus? These dhatus can be expressed in 10 lakaras. If you remember from last time or the time before, I told you about something called a lakara, which is the word for the tenses and moods in Sanskrit. So we have 10 tenses and moods, and their names, I kid you not, their names are lut, lit, lut, lrit, lot, late, lung, ling, lung, lring. So that's 10 lakaras. The reason they're called lakara is because they all start with the letter la. And so they're just known as 10 lakaras. And these are their names. And they express the 10 different tenses and moods. I'll explain all of that stuff as we go along in detail. But for now, that's that. So there's 10 lakaras, so you have past tense, present tense, future tense. Then you have a different kind of past tense. And you have three kinds of past tense. You've got one present tense. You have two kinds of future tenses. You have an imperative mood where you're commanding someone or requesting someone. You have a mood where you're talking about a conditional future. If this were to happen, then this would happen. So you have all of these different tenses and moods. So that's 10 lakaras, which means 1943 dhatus times 10. So now you keep doing this calculation with me, and eventually I'll tell you to tell me what you've got. So we have 1943 times 10 so far. Now, each lakara is made up of pratyayas, the different suffixes that we can attach. Those are in what we discussed last time. Remember, prathama purusha, madhyama purusha, and uttama purusha. Prathama purusha is that first person in Sanskrit, but in English it would be what we call as third person. Madhyama purusha, the middle person, and uttama purusha, the best person or the main person, or first person in English, what we call. So that's 3. And then you have singular, dual, and plural. Ekavachana, dvivachana, and bahuvachana. And so as a result of these 3 and 3, you have 9 different suffixes you can attach to represent all of those possibilities. So that's 9 suffixes. And those 9 suffixes are expressed in 2 padas. Now, the definition of pada is difficult because it's not really present in English. But you have 2 padas. One is called parasmai pada and one is called atmane pada. So these 9 different pratyayas that we have can be expressed both in parasmai pada and atmane pada. Parasmai pada means something like one action that you do for others. Parasmai literally means for the other. And atmane pada means those actions you do for yourself. Atmane literally means for oneself. So we have these 2 padas. So that actually means that there's 18 different pratyayas that we can attach. So that's 1943 times 10 times 9 times 2 so far. We're talking about how many verbal forms can there be. Then you have something called as prayogas, 2 prayogas. We have an active voice and a passive voice. These are known as kartari prayoga and karmani prayoga, respectively. Kartari means that the agent or the one who is doing the action is the one who is doing the action. And passive voice means it's expressed centered on the object of the action. So the difference between I am going and it is gone by me, like that. So that is active and passive voice. Then we have something called as the sanadi pratyayas. That means those suffixes which are 12 in number, beginning with the suffix called san. So we've got these 12 suffixes, and don't worry if you don't understand this right now. It's not about understanding the meanings of all these things, but it's simply about understanding just how big Sanskrit is. So we have these things called sanadi pratyayas, which are also known as root making pratyayas. If you attach one of these sanadi pratyayas to the end of a dhatu, then the dhatu transforms, but then it is again called as a dhatu. So you start from the beginning. It has 10 lakaras, 9 pratyayas, 2 padas, 2 prayogas. So these are called the sanadi pratyayas. For example, you have one dhatu called pat. Pat means to study or to read. Pat. So the verbal form is something like pathati. If you attach the pratyaya called san onto that, then you get pipatisha. Pipatisha. And pipatisha is yet another dhatu which can be used, but it's not there in Panini's dhatu patha. It's made by us separately. So that's why this is separate from those 1943 dhatus. So you get pipatishati, pipatishami, like that you have, which means to desire to read or study. He desires to read or study. I desire to read or study. That's yet another root, actually. So we create that with these sanadi pratyayas. Then we have something called as upasargas, which are our prefixes. Prefixes are those things which are attached to the beginning of a verb in order to transform the meaning of that verb and bring it elsewhere. So for example, and if you've been following along on the discussion group this week, then you would have already seen this example. But for those of you who aren't yet, and I encourage you to go on to that discussion group, let me give you this example. you have one root, one dhatu called hr. Hr. So hr means to take or to steal. So the verb is harati. Harati. He takes or he steals. If you attach the upasarga, the prefix called a, okay, so you get aharati. That literally means to eat or to consume. So the meaning has been totally transformed. Or if you take the upasarga called sam, then you get samharati. Samharati means to kill. Or you get praharati, which means to stab. Or you get upaharati. Upaharati means to give a gift. So these are some examples of how you can transform the meaning of one single dhatu with an upasarga. And there are 24 such upasargas like sam, pra, prati, ava, nis, dus, a. So we have all these different upasargas that are there. And so if you start reading, suppose you open a Bhagavad Gita, there will be countless verbs which have this upasarga before it. So many people ask, oh, I know what harati is, but what is this praharati? I'm like, it's not a different dhatu. It's not something else, but it just has this upasarga called pra. So recognizing the upasargas is important, and we'll get into that also eventually. So here's those definitions of all these things. We've got roots, tenses, moods, suffixes. Padas, I don't know how to define, so I just called them padas. So, and then we've got voices, dhatu making suffixes, and then prefixes. And now I want you all in the chat to please tell me what number have you come up with? 1943 times 10 times 9 times 2 times 2 times 12 times 24. And not to mention, by the way, that you can mix and match these upasargas as you want. I said aharati and upaharati separately, but if you mix them and you get upaharati, then it means one who eats, eating breakfast. So the meaning of this verb, which means to take or steal, has been taken totally elsewhere. So if you can open the chat, please, Shrijitji, so that I can see just what number people are coming up with. Very good. Okay. Yes. Without mixing. We're talking just the simplest thing. Okay. So we've got 201450240. So let me write that in here. Okay, so that makes 201,450,240 forms of verbs without mixing the upasargas, without mixing the sanadi pratyas, which you can also mix. We have this many verbal forms. So one question I saw already, which is that does every dhatu have every upasarga and every sanadi pratyaya? Theoretically, yes, it does. Not every dhatu has both padas. So that's also, it's true that not every dhatu has both padas, but for the sake of this calculation, I've just put down all the possibilities there. And what we find is that we have so many verbal forms. And there's something else that I didn't mention. What I didn't mention is that even nouns can be made into verbs. So you have a noun like Rama, very common noun, but you mix it with one particular sanadi pratyaya called kyang, and you get Ramayate. Ramayate becomes a verb. The word Rama becomes a verb, and Ramayate means behaves like Rama. That can become a verb. So every single noun can also become a verb. which means that literally there's infinite forms. I mean, there's no limit to the number of forms you can possibly make in Sanskrit. Now, normally I don't like comparing with English because English is amazing. English has so many features that Sanskrit doesn't have. But in this case, let's compare with English. Some of you who are out there, can you just really quickly look up how many words are there in the Oxford English Dictionary? Well, that's our standard for English, I suppose. So tell me how many words are there in the Oxford English Dictionary? And that means all of the forms, all of the different tenses, everything, because we don't make tenses by changing the verb itself. If I say going, then I make it present by saying is going, past by saying was going, future by saying will be going. So, but how many words do we have? Okay, can you open the chat, please? Okay, there's different numbers, of course. Okay, Google is saying 171476. Let's say approximately 200,000 words. And that includes nouns, by the way. That includes nouns. And this, we are only talking about verbal forms. Okay, thank you. So just to have a look at just how vast is this language, how many things it has the ability to express, and how many ways it has the ability to express. I just wanted you to see just how many forms. I mean, there's actually infinite forms. And the reason why there are infinite forms is because the entire universe is said to be made up of activity. The universe is composed of action. Even if you think about it scientific, even if you think about it in terms of physics, when you look at an atom, look at the atomic level of matter, and you see there's just movement. All it is movement. Look at the electron. It's just firing around. It makes a cloud because it's never in one place. Then you look at the nucleus and you see it just, vibrating like this. And then you go further and further and further. And now the smallest theorized particle is called a string. String theory you would have heard of. And string theory talks about how the smallest particle of the universe is actually just a string, which is just a vibration. So we've got these, we have this inherent belief that the universe is made up of activity. And therefore, it only makes sense that we should have infinite verbal forms because all of our experiences are just activity. So this is just to show you, just to give you a glimpse of exactly what's going on with Sanskrit, how big it is. So now you can see that knowing a dhatu, knowing the verbal forms is essential, because without that you cannot understand a single sentence. So I just wanted to show you this. Now we move on to something that we already kind of covered. Okay. All letters, we talked about the alphabet. Look at this, we're in class number 5 and we're still talking about the alphabet. But that's just because it's so deep. There's so much thinking that has gone into this alphabet. Now, all of the letters in the alphabet have names. They have technical terms, okay? Kind of like how you have these, you have pet names, So like at home you might be called something, but on paper you're called something else, So at home, my name might be Bubbly, but then outside my name is Vasundhara, or something like that. Or at home I'm called Raj, but then outside my name is Jagadishwara. So like that, we have these pet names. I guess it's like an Indian cultural thing to do that. You'll have some friend whose name is Puppy. But then 5 years later, you find out that, oh my gosh, his name is actually Vishnu Deva or something like that. So, all of the letters, please come. All of the letters have names. They all have names of their own. So, although we have called them as e, etc., let us talk about what they are actually called. What is their name on paper? Now, the vowels, the vowels are named swara. This we already saw. It's nothing new. Vowels are called swara. Then we have yan. Remember, I'm going according to the order of the Maheshwara Sutras. So I hope that you have already gone through those and memorized them, as that was our homework from, I think, week 2 to week 3, or maybe it was week 3 to week 4. But that was already our homework in the past. So I hope you've done that. Now you should be able to recognize yan pratyahara. The yan pratyahara, if you recognize the yan pratyahara, can you please raise your hands? I want to see if everybody is really understanding this now. I'll tell you what it is also, but I want you to raise your hand if you already kind of understand what it is. Or raise your hand if you also know what to do to understand what it is. Maybe you haven't fully figured it out, but you know what you're doing. Okay, that's promising. Although it could be better. Maybe some people are figuring out how to raise their hand also. So that's okay. All right. Okay. Can you lower all hands, please? Thank you. Okay. Now we've got, okay. You can stop raising your hand now. Okay. So the yan pratyahara is ya, va, ra, and la. These 4 letters. These are the semi-vowels. In Sanskrit, their technical name is called antastha. Antastha. Antastha means they are formed inside, or they are rooted inside, internally. Now, we can get into the technical meanings of all these words, but maybe let's not do that for now. It'll be too much. In the discussion forum, we can talk about all these things. But in this lecture, in these webinars, I want to just teach, and then we'll discuss things later. Now we've got yai pratyahara. So yai pratyahara is made up of nya, ma, nga, na, nam, jha, bhai, gha, dha, dhash, jaba, gada, dhash, kha, pha, cha, tha, tha, chata, tav, kapai. That means that it is all of those 5 rows. Ku, chu, tu, tu, pu is included here. That's the ka varga, cha varga, ta varga, ta varga, and pa varga. And that means those 25 main chunk letters of the alphabet. These guys' technical name is sparsha, because this is where the real contact happens. The word sparsha means contact. So this is where the contact happens in your mouth, the proper contact. It's called sparsha. Then we have shal. Shal is another pratyahara, which is sha, sha, sa, hal. Sha, sha, sar, hal. So these 4 letters, sha, sha, sa, ha, they also have a special name, which is ushma. Ushma. Now, ushma means something like heat, steam, vapor, air. So it's when you blow out air in various ways that you get something called the ushma. So to say sha, I have to really have a massive exhalation. So, and ha, of course, as you probably would have guessed. So these are the different letters, and these are their special names. All letters have name. So no more calling them puppy or bubbly or bunty or whatever. These things will now be known as swara, antastha, sparsha, and ushma. They have special names on paper, and we love proper names, so let's call them that. Okay. Now, here's something very interesting. We're not yet done talking about the alphabet. You see, before, we have already learned something what is known as sthanam. Do you remember this sthana chart that we made of the cross section of the mouth, and we had the lines that tell you exactly where things are? Everybody remembers that, I hope. So maybe I can even show you real quick. Let's go back to that. Where are we? Here. This is that chart. I hope you all remember this chart. These things are all known as sthana. Sthana means the place, the location in the mouth where all of these letters are made. So this is the sthana chart. And I've put this in that Google Drive folder also so you can see it. And now we come to something known as prayatna. every single letter has not just a place in the mouth, but also a particular effort required to make that letter. That's known as prayatna, the effort required to make that letter. And there are two types of, so this is the prayatna chart. There are two types of prayatna. One is known as abhyantara, that means the internal effort. And internal effort doesn't mean inside your body, because all effort is inside your body only. Abhyantara means that which is under your control, that which is made inside of the mouth is called abhyantara, and the next one is called as bahya prayatna. Bahya means that which is outside of your control, or you can say involuntary. Abhyantara is voluntary and bahya is involuntary. So those efforts that you perform, that you're not even aware of as you're performing them, are called as bahya, and those which you are aware of, that you consciously do, are called as abhyantara. So let's take a look at abhyantara first. What is the abhyantara prayatna for all of the letters of the alphabet? So first, we have one abhyantara prayatna called vivrita. Vivrita. These names are all very important. In every field, in every discipline, you have technical terms. Suppose you're studying biology and somebody says the word cell, but you're a computer scientist and you understand cell to be that little box in Microsoft Excel, then you're not going to get very far in biology. In biology, when you say cell, you are talking about that tiny, tiny organism that makes up this bigger body. So similarly, in Sanskrit grammar, we have technical terms that we have to understand before we go on so that we can actually make some progress. So today, I'm just telling you technical terms. Today is that dictionary day. We'll make it as interesting as possible. But this is that reference day when you come back and you say, oh yeah, okay, this is what's going on. And I guarantee you'll come back to this lecture eventually. So we've got vivrita, which means slightly open, slightly open. When you say a swara, say I say I say e, u, then my mouth is slightly open in order to say that. And it also just means open. There's an opening. There's no blockage between my voice and the outside. So that's called vivrita. Next one is called ishad vivrita. Ishad vivrita means a little bit open, a tiny bit open. Ishad means tiny bit, a little bit. And these are the antastha. Remember, antastha means yan pratyahara. Yan means yavarala. The semi-vowels are called antastha, and they are made by slightly opening the mouth. Your mouth is slightly open. They're close to vowels. That's why they're called as semi-vowel. And the name is ishad vivrita. So it's like a semi-vivrita. That's why it's called semi-vowel. So when you say ya, your mouth is not fully open like vivrita, but it's also not closed. So that's called ishad vivrita. Next one, sprishta. Sprishta, you can probably guess, is the technical term, the technical abhyantara prayatna, the voluntary effort to make the sparsha letters. And sparsha, we have very clearly said, are the 25 main letters from ka kha ga kha nga cha cha ja ja nya ta tha da dha na ta tha da dha na pa pha ba bha ma. These letters are called as sparsha. And so their abhyantara prayatna, their voluntary effort, is known as sprishta. That means contacted, touched. So that's when you make that touch. Then you have something called ishat sprishta, which means slightly touching, but not fully touching, which are the ushma letters. Ushma. And ushma, of course, we remember means sha, sha, sa, ha. These letters, you don't fully make contact, but you're kind of making contact. And it's only because of that kind of contact, that ishat sprishta abhyantara prayatna, that you're able to say sha, sha, sa, ha. And then finally, we have Samvrita. Samvrita means fully open in like a completely round way. And this is for the akara. And akara means the letter a. All of the swaras, the vowels are called vivrita. But in Sanskrit grammar, when we use the letter a in Panini's Ashtadhyayi anywhere, then it is known as samvrita. It has a special technical name. Or a technical abhyantara prayatna, the internal effort. Now we come to bahya prayatna, those efforts which are outside of our control. This is where it gets really interesting. And I'll explain to you the utility of this in a second. Okay. Now we've got hush, the hush pratyahara, which we remember means ha ya va ra la nya ma ga na na jha bha gha dha dha ja ba ga da da until there is called, or it has the bahya prayatna, the external effort, which is known as samvara, nada, and ghosha. Samvara means open. There is an opening of the vocal cords when you say this. Nada means that you're using your voice actually to say it. And ghosha means that the shape of your vocal cords is something like a V. It's open to the outside. It's externally open. And so when you say any letter, suppose you say ga, ga, I cannot say ga without using my voice. Suppose I was to stop using my voice. I can't say ga. I have to make that sound. But when we come to the next one, which is the kar pratyahara, which we remember means ka, pa, cha, ta, tha, cha, ta, ta, ka, pa, sha, sha, sa. This kar pratyahara is, it has the bahya prayatna called vivara, shvasa, aghosha. Vivara means not fully open, kind of open, little bit open, but not really open. Shvasa means that you say this only with your breath, not with your voice. You don't open up your vocal cords to say these words. And aghosha means that the shape of your vocal cords is something like an A instead of a V, wherein the vocal cords close onto this letter instead of open onto this letter. So suppose you say the letter ka. This k sound, I can make that sound without using my voice at all. You can hear it, but I cannot say ga without using my voice. You try it, experiment with this for yourself. If you're sitting at home in your room or something on your own, then don't be shy. Nobody can hear you. We cannot hear you. You try it, test it out, feel these letters for yourself. Good. so we have these different bahya prayatnas. Now, bahya prayatna can be classified into two types. You see that red little bracket I made? That's one type of bahya prayatna. And the second type is known as prana. The first type is just known as bahya prayatna, what we just mentioned. Second type is known as prana. That means the amount of breath you require to say any letter. So the first is called alpa prana. Alpa prana, alpa means little bit. A little bit of prana is required. Prana means breath. So you have to use a little bit of breath to say this. Remember, when we saw the alphabet, we did it like this. We put our hand in front of our mouth and we said ka, ka. When you say ka, you cannot feel any air on your hand. And because you cannot feel any air on your hand, that is known as alpa prana. If you've ever been confused as how can I tell what is alpa prana and maha prana, this is the secret. If you put your hand in front of your mouth, and when you say the letter, if you can feel the breath on your hand, then it's maha prana. If you don't feel it, it's alpa prana. That's the secret. But technically, what is it? Let's see now. Alpa prana is made up of the ach pratyahara, means the vowels. The yam pratyahara. Yam means antastha, which is ya, va, ra, la. And also the nasals. Nya, ma, ga, na, nam. All the nasals. Then you have the jash pratyahara, which is jabagada da. Then you have chai pratyahara, chai, which is cha ta ta ka pa. And so in other words, it is the swaras, the antasthas, the fifth letter of each row, that is the nasals, the third letter of each row, which is jabagarada, and the first letter of each row, which is kachatatapa or chatatau kapai. So it's swara antastha 531. That's how we will think about it from now on. Okay, those letters are called as alpa prana letters. They don't require much breath to say them. And the next type is called mahaprana. Maha means great. It is the great breath, the great exhalation, where you need more air, more exhalation in order to say this letter. That is the jhash pratyahara, jha bhai, gha dha dhash. You should say it along with me as I'm saying it. Next one, the letter ka, the letter pa, cha, ta, tha, and the shal pratyahara, which is sha, sha, sa, ha. All of these require your breath. If you say all of them, you run out of breath, hopefully. If you run out of breath, means you're saying them correctly. So in other words, this is number 4. Remember, ka, kha, ga, gha. That's number 4, ka. So number 4, which is jha, bhai, gha, dha, dhash. Number 2, ka, kha, those ones, which is ka, pa, cha, ta, tha. Number 3, oh sorry, that's not number 3, that's an u, ushma. The ushma, which is sha, sha, sa, ha. These are called as the mahaprana letters. So this is the prayatna chart. We will need to know the prayatna of these different letters when, for example, if we are doing sandhi, where you're joining letters and you have to convert one letter into another type of letter. Then how do you choose which letter to get? You use this prayatna chart in order to figure it out. For example, we have to convert the letter ha. Suppose we have to convert the letter ha into its respective chu. Chu, you remember, means the cha varga. Cha, cha, ja, jha, ya. Now, at some point in our process, we will find that Panini says, hey, you got this ha here, then you have to turn it into the chu. Cha, cha, ja, jha, ya. So we're like, wait a second, what do I have to do? So I have to convert one letter into another letter. That will happen at some point. When you have to convert one into another letter, and you have to choose between 5 different letters, then how do I choose which one to convert it into? So the first thing we check is always the sthana. We first check the sthana. Where in the mouth is it made? So we're converting ha, and I'll write this here just so you can see it clearly. We are converting ha into chu. Chu means cha, cha, ja, ja, ya. So which one of these do we choose? So first look at the sthana. The sthana of ha, if you remember our sthana chart, is kantha. Kantha. Kantha means this area, the throat area. Kantha. And the sthana of chu is the talu. So these two sthanas don't match at all. So we cannot use this in order to figure out which one to choose. This doesn't help us at all. So now we go to the abhyantara prayatna. Let's see. Ha is part of the ushma, and ushma is, the abhyantara prayatna of ushma is ishat sprishta. Ishat sprishta. Take a look here. I'll make this red. You see that? Ishat sprishta is the abhyantara prayatna for ushma. And what is the abhyantara prayatna for chu? Well, they're all sparsha letters. Therefore, their abhyantara prayatna is sprishta. That means these don't match. So you cannot use the abhyantara prayatna either to determine which one replaces ha. So now we come to bahya prayatna. I'm just showing you the utility of this. If you're like, why am I memorizing all these names of technical terms of these things? It's because when you have to do this, then you'll be confused if you don't know this. So the bahya prayatna of ha is sambara nada ghosha. Why? Because ha is part of the hash pratyahara, obviously, because it's ha, ya, va, ra, la, yama, ganana. Okay, so we've got ha is part of the hash pratyahara. So it's sambara, nada, and ghosha. Now we take chu and we take it apart. In chu, we have 5 letters. Cha and cha are part of the khar pratyahara. Therefore, their bahya prayatna is vivara, shvasa, aghosha. So these are out. And the rest 3, ja, jha, and nya, are in the hash pratyahara. And therefore, these are kept. So now 2 have been kicked off the island and 3 remain. Who will survive? That's when I replace one letter with some other letter, then somehow this like reality TV show concept is going on in my head. You have 5 contestants. Who will make it to the end? So far, cha and cha have been kicked off the island, and you have ja, jha, nya remaining. So who will survive? Now we go to prana. So in prana, this is the prana level of this contest. So here we have alpa prana and maha prana. So ha, let's look at ha. Ha is a maha prana because it's part of the shal pratyahara. And we have ja, jha, nya. These 3 letters remain. So out of ja, jha, nya, ja is alpa prana and nya is also alpa prana. And jha is mahaprana. So the one that remains, the one that survives the contest is jha. And so we end up replacing ha with jha. That's how this whole thing works. So at the end, you're always left with only one option, and that is the one that will replace. So that's the purpose of this prayatna chart. So now we've seen the prayatnas, okay. Now we have to see one other thing. We have a little bit of time, so I will share with you, which is also very interesting. We're still not done talking about the alphabet. Isn't that strange? Who has ever thought about letters in this way? So deeply and so systematically, categorizing, classifying every letter in like 100 different ways. Who has thought about it like that? So now we move on to something else, which is still the alphabet. Now these swaras, the swaras, we've talked about the vowels. These vowels are not just a, I, un, ril, rik, a, ong, I, ouch. So far we have seen these, and that is how many in number? 9. We have 9 vowels, but actually these 9 vowels are not just a, I, u, ril, r, a, o. They all, that letter a contains many other letters inside of it. So let's see how they contain many different letters. We have 3 different categories of vowel, or not category, classifications of vowels. We have length, how long is the vowel? We have tone. You have different tones in Sanskrit. So you have a high tone, middle tone, lower tone. That means your pitch that you say it at. And then you have nasalization of every vowel. I can say as and I can also say as So you can be nasalized also. So we have these 3 different classifications for the vowels. Now length can be broken up into 3 types: hrasva, dirgha, and pluta. Hrasva means short, dirgha means long, and pluta means like super long, extendedly long, for 3 beats or more. So for example, suppose I say the word Krishna, Krishna. That at the end of Krishna is hrasva. It's short. Krishna. Suppose I was to say Krishna, well, let's not confuse, but suppose I said Lata, Lata. That is long. Lata. And suppose then I was to call, or Radha, these are long, dirgha letters. Now suppose I was to call Krishna from a distance. I'll say, Krishna. That long calling, when I call from a really long distance, is called pluta, where I hold that for a long time. That's called pluta. So we have which can be broken up into hrasva, dirgha, and pluta. Hrasva is dirgha is and pluta is You see that 3 next to the That 3 means hold it for 3 beats, 3 measures. I mean, not measures, 3 matras or more. That's called pluta. Then we have E, which also has this E and E. Then you have U and U. And then this is really nice for, if you have a baby and you want to give them, if you want to like give them a lullaby of some kind, this is very helpful. And the baby also starts saying it with you. It's wonderful. Then you have R, and R, like that. You hold it for 3 beats or more. Then you have Lr. Now this one is special. It doesn't have a dirgha. Lr only has a hrasva and a pluta. Lr or Lr, but it doesn't have a dirgha for some reason. Which means that the dirgha of Lr is never used anywhere. So there's no dirgha, simply. Then you have A, which starts off as dirgha. A doesn't have a short form. It's not A. You don't have that. In some South Indian languages, you have A, but it's not like that in Sanskrit. There's only dirgha A and pluta A, but it's not. There is no hrasva. Yes, Ehi Murare. That A is a dirgha. Then you have O and O. Then you have I and I. And then you have Au and Au, like that. So these are the vowels classified by their length. Now you can see that doesn't just have one When I say I am referring to and a. Next one. We have 3 different tones also. Tones means the pitches at which you say a letter. When I say then I can say it as I can say it as I can say it as like that. You have 3 different tones. The first tone is called udatta. Udatta means the higher pitch. So if you hear some Vedic chanting, you hear Om Rajadhirajaya, that at the end, that is that udatta, higher. Then anudatta. Anudatta means the lower pitch. Lower pitch. So Om Rajadhirajaya. So that Rajadhira, that lower pitch is anudatta. And then you have a middle tone called svarita. That means when the 2 udatta and anudatta are combined and you get a middle thing, that's called svarita. And then you have 2 types of nasalization. Anunasika. So when I say and I can say in any of the 3 tones, then I can either say it nasalized or not nasalized. So nasalized is called anunasika and non-nasalized is called ananunasika. So I can say or I can say so I can either nasalize it or not nasalize it. And so we see that this letter the single letter in the Maheshwara Sutras, which is so small and unassuming, has all these different forms. Within that is contained this whole world. So that then can be formed in how many different ways? We have 3 lengths times 3 tones times 2 nasalizations, which means that there are 18 forms for I, U, and R, which have all 3 lengths. Then for lr, a, o, I, and au, which have only 2 out of the 3 lengths, so it'll be 2 times 3 times 2, these have only 12 forms. So even when we're saying Maheshwara Sutras, ai, un, ril, rik, e, ong, I, ouch, we have to remember that each single one of those contains all these different forms. Now, I'm going to stop here because I want to introduce you to something new next time, which is a concept called as a sutra. A sutra. The sutra is the literary technique used by ancient authors to convey something in a tiny space, in a tiny amount of letters. A sutra is the way in which they define the rules of Sanskrit grammar. So Panini has written these 4,000 sutras in his Ashtadhyayi, and each sutra contains some meaning. So what exactly is a sutra? How does it work? See, we have sutras to define all these things which I have just mentioned to you. Can you stop the screen share now, please? So we have sutras to define the rules that govern all of these things that I have just told you. All of these names, everything, they all have sutras attached to them. But nowadays, nobody really teaches sutras. They don't teach according to sutras. They just say, hey, if you have a and you mix it with another a, then you get a. If you have a, you mix it with e, then you get a. They just teach it like that, like a math formula. But they're actual sutras. They're actually real rules like that, which define and govern everything that we will talk about from now on. So what is the definition of a sutra? There is a technical definition of a sutra also, which we will see next time. Then we will see also all of the sutras that govern these things what we talked about right now. And once you understand what a sutra is and how a sutra works, then you are finally prepared to actually go into real material. I mean, this is the real material. But once you understand what a sutra is, then you are finally prepared to actually start digging into these rules and seeing how do they function with each other, how do they actually codify the language of Sanskrit. So now we are done, finally done classifying the alphabet. There's no more alphabetical classification that needs to be done. So this is week 5. Until this week, you could sign up. So I think what we will do is we will close the sign up for this webinar on Friday, this coming Friday. So until Friday, you can sign up and everybody can sign up until then. You can share this, share it with everybody if you're enjoying. And then after that, it gets real. So now once those who have signed up only should continue after this, because until this point, you can catch up. It's all very nice. You know, I'm explaining different principles of language and all that stuff. But now we will see what exactly is grammar and how does it work. So after that, after this week, it's going to get real. So now it's time to get serious. It's time to buckle down. It'll remain interesting. It only gets more and more interesting, actually. It doesn't become less interesting. But now it's time to get real. So be excited. Next time we're going to actually get into this stuff. So and get into the mind of Panini, which is amazing. It's so vast you can't even imagine. So we'll get there next week. And that's all for today. Can you open the chat real quick? I think we'll just end now, but let me just see in case there's something very urgent. Okay. So somebody has asked for detailed notes. I will put notes of all of this in the Google Drive, so don't worry. Okay. Okay, it says some vowels are coming in both Bahya as well as Abhyantara Prayatna. Ushma is not vowels, by the way. Ushma is not vowels. But nevertheless, they come in both of these prayatnas because every letter has both of these prayatnas. Every letter has both of these prayatnas. Okay, can you keep going? Just scroll down. Just keep scrolling down. I'll tell you when to stop. Okay, this is good. I'm glad that this conversation is going on. Move this conversation now into the discussion forum. This week, I want people to discuss properly. I'll give detailed notes, don't worry, keep scrolling down. Okay, excellent. There are links. Remember, there's links to all of the previous videos in your in the announcements tab in your Sanskrit webinar dashboard. And so if you ever want to view the previous videos, go there and you'll see all of the links in the announcements tab. So please check that out if you need the previous things. Okay, so we will end here. Let's do the concluding mantra and then we will end. And please move all of your questions to the discussion forum. Now I feel the real discussions will begin. So now we can start actually thinking about these things. What does it mean? What does it do? Okay. All right. Thank you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you all for attending and see you next week. Bring your friends.